consoles for Oblivion.
If we have to.
Yeah, if we listen to that. What? What's that all about?
Can we just go play instead?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can we just go play? Be sure to mod it first. Which was one of the most important things about Oblivion. Coming out on PC, you're just like, wait for the mods, here they come. And that was part of the fun.
There's also a big ESRB controversy over that.
Yeah, tell us more about that, Tal.
So over the mods for, the game released with the T rating, and then a bunch of mods were released for it. One of the mods that we released was a full frontal nudity mod. And the ESRB came back to Bethesda and said, you didn't tell us these textures were in the game. And Bethesda was like, these textures aren't in the game. That's how modifications work.
Yeah.
And the ESRB was like, well, we can't have this out there for the kids. Who's thinking of the children? You have to raise your game to an M. So they actually had to release stickers that GameStop, you had to put stickers on the boxes for Oblivion because of a modification, something that Bethesda never even had in the game. It wasn't even like hot coffee. Yeah. It wasn't in the game. It was a modder had done something. So very interesting story at the time. And it really kind of showed that, how do you then rate these works of art that aren't necessarily, that can be modified, right? Or you can change the works of art. It's just like, how do you rate online experiences for the ESRB, right? You can't, nobody intends for there to be all that racism and sexism out there, and you're coming through your ear when you're playing an online shooter, but, that's the kind of world we live in.
That's absolutely fascinating. It's one of the casualties of allowing people to go in and express their creativity, as some of them are going to express it in especially creative ways.
Yeah, and while it's not exactly like the hot coffee situation, logistically it's obviously a very different thing. There's no two ways about it. Like the fact that retailers had to add stickers because of GTA certainly paved the way for that same kind of decision.
That's exactly
with
it. And I think that's why the ESRB came down on it so harshly. Was because hot coffee had been just passed. And they wanted to make sure they were still seen as the authority, because there was a lot of questioning on, hey, is this governing body, do they really have any power in this industry?
Now, in addition to, we're talking a lot about modding, but this game didn't just come out for PC.
No, it didn't.
And that was so let's talk about that for a second.
What's amazing about Elder Scrolls, about Oblivion in particular for me, is that I was always primarily more of a console gamer. I've played on PCs since maybe the late 90s. I'm not a stranger to PC gaming, but I didn't always have a PC, a gaming grade PC. And even with games like Grand Theft Auto 3, the previous generation, I had never seen a world as open or as large as Oblivion that I could actually play without having to go and buy a $2,000, or at least I thought $2,000 gaming computer at the time. The first time I was like off the leash in that game and could go anywhere, I was, people talk about, goodbye reality. No, I was literally goodbye reality. I was like, this is just the world I want to live in and be in and frolic with unicorns in. There was that thing. There was that unicorn. You know the unicorn? Yeah, the unicorn. Yeah. So I have a very depressing thing that happened with the unicorn.
No.
When I first heard about the unicorn, I'm like, I've got to find this unicorn, this singular, lustrous being, and I did find it. Found it dead in a forest. Like so many other people had the same problem where they found the unicorn, but the unicorn is dead. That's what. There's one in the whole game world.
Was Voldemort drinking its blood to stay alive?
Well, that's the thing about that game too, right? Things would happen in that game when you weren't even around, and unfortunately, whether it be a bug or not supposed to happen, but that's just how the game world was. It was a lot like the real world. If you missed something, too freaking bad.
Yeah, and that world was the real appeal. Who cares about the story?
The main story on Oblivion. Like I was one of those people who didn't even play the main story until I got like super high levels, and then it became really hard all of a sudden just to get through the main story, because all the side quests were much more interesting to me. Like that's what made the world real, right? Really just happening upon something randomly instead of like following this main storyline.
Yeah, just sort of being this vagrant, wandering around this beautiful, wonderful world and seeing what you could get into was the appeal. Also, you could become a vampire, and that's just always fun.
But it's really interesting. Like the better our game consoles get, the more capabilities they have, the more we see games like that don't need that straight through line through it. It's just about spending time in this world, and then you have more replay value.
Well, that's what I always do, right? I'll load up my game being like, I'm going to finish that quest tonight, and then all of a sudden I get in and I go, ooh, cave door, ooh, shiny thing. And then I just get lost. And then like 8 hours later, I'm like, oh, geez, well, I guess I'll get to that quest sometime.
Yeah.
And Oblivion's a pretty stupendous example of that.